You want to break it down. You want to break it down Barney style because you want to list the feature. You want to list the end user that uses the feature, how it helps them, the value proposition. We list also some of the messaging that's associated, how to pitch it. All of that is in a sales enablement guide. And then they can take that and they could take, a release that had just come out and they can count 15 pages worth of information on each feature that our client has. And they can translate it in simple terms and understand it on how it is going to make their job better.
Revenue boosters, tips now in the fast lane. Watch your profits grow. Welcome to the Rev Up Podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Rev Up Podcast. Today, we are joined by Natalie Schibell, who is the VP of Marketing, Strategy, Intelligence, and Insights at Zyder True Care. They are a clinically led AI-powered platform for enabling value-based healthcare, which is so cool what you all do. But before we talk about Zyder, I would love to talk about your background. You have background in the military, which I think is such a cool experience to bring to marketing. Talk to me a little bit about your experience in intelligence and how you sort of apply that to your marketing function in B2B SaaS or in healthcare SaaS.
Sure. So I actually wasn't an intelligence officer. I was a medical service corps officer specializing in environmental health, but there are certainly lots of aspects of intelligence and information gathering when you're doing outbreak investigations and managing populations. I managed about 8 different preventive medicine programs and occupational health and safety, everything from foodborne illness outbreaks to, E. coli in the water on submarines.
Wow.
To, making sure that Marines had their prophylaxis for malaria, their doxycycline, pediatric blood lead levels, and the list goes on and on. At the time I was serving, there was, the Ebola outbreak. And of course, towards the end of my service, there was the COVID, pandemic. So no shortage of bugs, but whenever you're dealing with bugs and sick people, it really comes down to collecting information, and making sure that you're tracking things and things are accountable and there's policies and procedures set up to mitigate illness and improving health outcomes. So there's a direct correlation to healthcare, of course, in the digital sector and what we do in value-based healthcare, which is managing the populations of for healthcare payers, providers, and government. They're all combined in wanting that same mission. So there's a ton of different correlations, more with that than marketing in my current role. But if you tie it all together, there's that evidence gathering and factual evidence that you're using, to help solve problems. So that was a large overview, but can definitely elaborate.
Fantastic. When we first met, you were telling me about the intelligence, so I thought those were connected. I apologize for that misunderstanding. Some of the information that you're sharing about the intelligence part of your title was so fascinating to me, and I personally have started to reconceptualize what actual intelligence means for us in our use cases. So can you tell me a little bit about the intelligence portion of your title and how you actually
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So the way that I have adapted it to marketing. So my background is also as an analyst. I was a VP principal analyst and a VP research director at Forrester. You may have heard of them. They're a leading market research firm specializing in technologies. In my specific case, it was healthcare technologies. Being someone that works in market research, you understand, the trends. You understand and develop criteria for ranking different platforms, the features and the functionalities that are table stakes, the ones that really make companies differentiate from the competition. And so you develop that analytic brain where you're assessing, from briefing to, doing a report, really what the top things are to look for in a company, what makes them special, the evidence that's required to, and the KPIs and metrics that, you hold them accountable as an analyst when you're making that assessment. And that carries over tremendously to product marketing, which is what I started off here at Zyder True Care, but that role gradually expanded. Using my analyst background, I learned a lot about product from the ground up, from the product research perspective, where you're looking at the competitors, You're looking at the value propositions. You're looking at the trends, the health statistics of why do our end users need the solution? And what do we need to do in order to develop it? Not only the minimum things that you need to do, but then the differentiators. What are our competitors doing? What are the features that they have? And also mapping out the customer journey, how that administrator uses the platform to make their job better, reduce administrative burden, while also improving public or population health outcomes. That all comes into that intelligence piece. It's far beyond marketing, although there's many types of marketing. Marketing has its nuances, but it puts a whole nother layer in, that intelligence layer, where you're really looking out for the key differentiators that your product must have to outperform your competition.
Totally. And where do you find that data? How do you go about getting that type of intelligence?
That's a really good question. I'll reveal some of my secrets because a lot of them are free. The internet is a wondrous place. So you can go to company websites. This is public information. It's there for the world to see. It's there for your gain as well. And you can extrapolate different things through customer testimonials. You can find out who their clients are, case studies. You can go through press releases, so you can figure out what their latest innovations are. You can look at their product releases, what they're putting out. You can also look at, reviews online. A lot of disgruntled people is not a good thing. You can focus in on that and then dig a little bit deeper. Why was it this one person who was disgruntled, or is this a trend that you're seeing? There's Google reviews and all sorts of different reviews that you can read. There's also there's bad press too, and you can find that on the internet very, very easily. And then if you take it to another level, there's market research. If you're lucky enough, if your company has the funding, you can subscribe to a number of different market research firms like Forrester, Gartner, IDC, Everest Group, and Class, of course. How could I forget Class? And you can pull these market research reports. And a lot of the analysts come up with different criteria where they're ranking different companies. Like Forrester is known for their waves. IDC MarketScapes are a little bit different. Each firm has a way that they write their reports. And then there's Class, which gauges customer sentiment through different surveys and one-on-one phone calls with clients. And they have a certain methodology for, maintaining transparency. Some analyst firms focus more on the features and functionalities, and there's Class, which is more on what do the customers say? And is that validated? Is this a trend that we're seeing throughout every time that we call? And there'll always be ebbs and flows, and they go through their methodology for describing, for going through their statistics. But it can be extremely helpful because you get, the technical aspect of it, and then you get what the customer is actually saying. So you need both, right? You need how your product is performing, and then you need to see how your clients feel about the product and the different titles that they have. It is anonymous, but you can tell at least it's a CIO, it's administrator at the company, it's a nurse. And so that it's very helpful taking all that information into account.
Totally. And I think I was very well aware that of different ways to use that intelligence in product, in ways to use that intelligence in marketing, right? And how to differentiate the product. What I was sort of intrigued by when we first met was how you like to use some of that intelligence in sales and support the sales team with that intelligence. Can you walk through what does that partnership look like between the intelligence and sales as it comes together?
Sure. And it's tough for marketers to admit. We all know that marketing exists because of sales, right? We're trying to drive revenue. So we're here to support sales each day, figuring out what information they need, how we can help serve them better so they can go out into the field with confidence and ultimately close deals. From a marketing perspective, especially a product perspective, when you're looking at very complex regulations and workflows in healthcare, they need all the ammo that they can get. I'll even take myself. I had a background in emerging technologies in healthcare, everything from AI and, predictions and trends and public health background. When it came to payer workflows, it was a challenge and a learning curve to understand what the heck is utilization management and prior authorization. These were new terms that I hadn't encountered before. I could tell you all about AI. I could tell you about customer data platforms and electronic health record systems, but when it came to that, I had to learn, right? And so, when you think about sales and the different backgrounds that they might come from in healthcare, I mean, they could have sold EHRs, they could have sold a number of different things, they could have sold market research. But now all of a sudden they have to sell this very complex product that is to help drive value-based healthcare. And that culminates in many different things: patient engagement, member engagement, improved health outcomes, reduced hospital admissions, and potentially avoidable readmissions. And we do this in various ways: health information exchange, interoperability, predictive analytics, and risk stratification. This is a lifetime of learning. And you have to go into it knowing that you're not going to know everything. I certainly don't know everything. I'm proud to admit it, but I'm willing to learn. And so, I have to help support, my sales team with all these intricacies and CMS regulations and how these features help our clients, meet these regulations. So when it comes to enablement, you want to break it down. You want to break it down Barney style, because you want to list the feature. You want to list the end user that uses the feature, how it helps them, the value proposition. We list also some of the messaging that's associated, how to pitch it. All of that is in a sales enablement guide. And then they can take that and they could take, a release that had just come out, and they can count 15 pages worth of information on each feature that our client has. And they can translate it in simple terms and understand it on how it is going to make their job better. And it's just something that they just have to purchase, right? Because it's going to make their day that much easier and less of a burden, and of course, make their populations healthier. And so you can actually translate all of that and enable your sales team so they can speak the language, use the correct terminology. They have a very tough job. They've got to go up against competitors, and they have to speak with very intelligent people who've been doing this, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. CISOs, chief technology officers, chief digital officers, right? They've been in the trenches in the technical world, and they've been through the evolution of the electronic health record to telemedicine and all these things. And that salesperson has to step up to the plate and figure out, how do I differentiate from my competitors? They may have used our one of our competitors for 5 years, 10 years. How do I convince them to move over? And that comes down to intelligence, right? Loading them up with every possible thing that you can in terms of poking holes in your competitor. There is no perfect software, I'll say that. We all have holes, but this is information that you can leverage and then pivot around with the development of our products and how we approach our customer journey, make it easier. And you can poke holes and make an argument, a solid argument for why our solution will be more helpful versus what they're currently using or maybe not using.
You say it so eloquently, but there's something really in the trenches in that warfare of sales. This is the feedback that we found on the internet for our competitors. We're going to arm our salespeople with that sort of negative intelligence to help them win the sale. I think it's just so revolutionary. I don't think a lot of people are doing that specific, arming their sales team with that kind of intelligence data to bring for specific features or specific things. And I haven't seen much of that. And I think it's incredibly interesting for everyone to use, whether you're selling something to a very sophisticated CISO, or if you're selling to an engineer, developer, or if you're selling to a mid-market, whoever you're selling to. I think being armed with the right competitive intelligence to be able to incrementally win a sale seems obvious.
You don't see a lot of it because it's hard and it's time consuming, and it's always changing and it's always growing. You have to keep pace because, one day, you can have everything all set, and then all of a sudden you hear about a data breach, and then now your strategy updates. Now you got to find out all the information that you can. And so, this is an evolving initiative, and you're never bored. And yes, yesterday's news is still yesterday's news. And technology moves at the pace of speed of light. If you're snoozing for a few months, you take a break, maybe you take another job in a different sector, you come back and you start to forget things. And certainly, when I was an analyst, I used to sit in briefings, sometimes 3 or 4 a day. And, while you retain the foundational knowledge, it's amazing. You start to forget certain things, little intricacies. You forget names of companies. So it's constantly you have to work that muscle, or else you start forgetting some key things. And that's why it's so hard. There's always another startup. There's another company. There's another innovation that's out. Technology continues to change. ChatGPT, GPT, generative AI. To keep pace with this is absolutely a full-time job in and of itself. But that's just one small job that a marketer does,
Absolutely.
especially a product marketer.
You're probably the best person to learn from about this. Getting into those analyst reports and well-reviewed by those analyst reports can be a game changer, especially for software tools selling to larger companies. Given you've moved over to be on the brand side, selling this, how have you engineered your strategy for success getting into those reports effectively with the analysts that are writing those reports? How does that process work for you, and what can we learn as we all think about marketing and selling in a similar type of vein?
Yeah, so I think it's important that you understand how analysts operate, how to engage them effectively. I cannot tell you how many times I've sat on a briefing, and they haven't rehearsed it, and it's sloppy and messy and painful to sit and you're squirming. You just feel embarrassed for them because they started out well intentioned and they're going 10 minutes into the history of their company, and you're like, I got to eat lunch, I got another appointment, and there's 10 other things waiting for me. And you just got to get right to the point. Who are you? Why are you special? Why should we pay attention? Why should we get excited about the possibility of including you in a market research report? What are your differentiators? Show me your use cases, your case studies. Show me where you have outstepped your competition with all those wonderful KPIs and metrics. So there's KPIs and metrics of your specific platform, and the user adoption and those types of metrics. And then there's the metrics on the actual population that you're serving, right? How have you improved their lives and their health with your solution? How do you justify that? And that's hard to do, right? When you could sit through the most amazing briefing, and at the end you go, give me some examples. What are some of your successful use cases? And if they're prepared, they've got them. If they don't, then everything kind of goes out of the window, right? If you can't show me the data, the evidence, then I'm not confident. It's very easy to put a beautiful PowerPoint together and talk about the history of the company, maybe some of your customers. But if you can't show me the metrics, then as an analyst, I kind of shut down. So you take that and you apply that on the other side of it, on the product side of it, and you use that to develop the KPIs. Once you know how analysts will rank you and how they will assess you, then the KPIs and the customer stories and the case studies that you need that can help drive that value proposition home. And when you get the RFIs, the RFIs can be very, very extensive. You start to learn really quick whether a company is truly a leading provider, or maybe they're just 6 months into things and still trying to figure out what they want to sell. If you can answer those questions thoroughly, that essentially proves that you've been in business a while. You understand the needs of your customers. You understand your pricing, and you have a methodology. If that RFI is pretty blank, that you're dealing with a company that quite hasn't figured out their strategies yet, and it's very, very likely that they don't have many customers. You could tell really quickly. And so knowing all of that and knowing what it takes to make an assessment, you start to understand how do you develop your products, to ensure that you can have those key differentiators and KPIs come forward when you're briefing analysts.
That's fantastic. So being prepared for briefing the analysts is big. I know that you told me a little bit about your strategy for staying top of mind with those folks. How do you approach that process now that you've empathized with what their experience is, how busy they are, how much information they have?
Sure.
How do you keep your brand top of mind for the analysts who might cover the space or adjacent space?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because everyone is overwhelmed with so much information and so many emails. So it's really a hybrid approach. You want to reach out to them. We have a newsletter for our analysts. It's called The Briefing.
Well, you have a newsletter specifically for the analysts.
Yes, which is not very traditional. It's something that some of the larger clients that I've dealt with in the past have done. And I've kind of taken that philosophy. They would have briefings when, something major came out. And these were, I can't reveal their names, but these were huge tech companies. And I said, interesting. They would bring all the analysts together and they would have a briefing, an exclusive front row seat briefing. Just that we could ask questions. And I said, that'd be great. What if I were to adopt that same thing at now as a product marketer? And that you give them the option of subscribing. They may subscribe, they may not subscribe. I send it from my own Outlook email. And, if they want to, they can go and click and subscribe. But this way, they at least know that, we're staying in touch. They might not be covering something that we're writing about, or they might not be writing a report on, say, patient engagement for that quarter. But they at least know that we're doing things in that space. And if things change, they can come back to us and request a briefing. But, also we are reaching out to them, encouraging them, to keep in touch. And it goes both ways. We're reaching out to also brief them. We have new things coming out, new product releases. We're constantly researching what analyst covers what, because obviously it doesn't help, if you want to talk about your remote patient monitoring device and someone doesn't cover that. It's looking into all the firms, who's at those firms, what they're covering, what their planned research is. And a lot of times they'll put that on the website. They want to let their subscribers know, and individuals who might not even be subscribers, of what's planned, because that might entice a company to subscribe to their research. But you can make use of that publicly available information, and you could start strategizing as a marketing team on who you want to speak to. So that's very helpful.
I love that. I think treating them as their own population of people to market to is so thoughtful. And I think it's cool that you had the experience of sitting in that seat, seeing what the best of the best do, and using that at maybe a smaller scale in a way that's a little bit more approachable with that newsletter is a great idea to find those target folks that you want to get in front of them regularly with that newsletter, so that when they're writing this, you could probably appear a little bit bigger to your potential customer base by having more coverage than maybe you otherwise would, given the stage of the company. You could look like a really big player in the space because of that research inclusion.
Absolutely. There's so many different companies competing out there. And when you look at electronic health record systems, right, there's over 500 different platforms out there. How do you differentiate? And you don't have to be the biggest company or have the most revenue, but if you have good analyst relations and you're keeping up with briefings and demos, now you're top of mind for that analyst. So that when they're on a call with a client and they're helping them solve their issues and talking about the key features that they need to be looking for, they say, "Oh, what about that Zyder True Care?" And now all of a sudden, Zyder True Care is on the lips of analysts. They tell their clients. Now all of a sudden, it's free advertising, right? That client who may have never thought of Zyder True Care, or maybe they didn't subscribe, to this particular firm, but they ended up in a report in another firm. Now all of a sudden, you've incredibly expanded your reach, and you have credibility because an analyst has included you in a report, or maybe they just got a briefing, and you're fresh in their memory. They specialize in your space, and they're communicating the benefits of your feature now to the industry. So it can be very powerful.
That's amazing. Now, you are a wealth of knowledge. This is incredible. My three main takeaways personally. Number one, I want to make sure that I do way more competitive research than I've been doing. I need to learn not just what my competitors are doing, but who they're working with, from their case studies, from their logos, sourcing their reviews all over the internet to find out not just what people are saying about the company and about the product, but specifically what the feedback is, so I can understand that from product and marketing. But my second thing is, how do we use that with sales? How do we really come prepared with, we offer this, here's why it's different, and this is a specific thing someone said about a competitor and why you should work with us, is just, it's fierce. And I love that you say it so eloquently, because it is amazing and seems like it's structured to win. And I need to learn how to do that better. And I think we all can. And finally, market research analysts are an amazing population to get in front of, especially because they are the linchpin to so many buying decisions, especially for software. And I think it's a great, thoughtful program to have newsletter or an ongoing cadence of communications for that population, especially because you empathize with that and have the experience of seeing what best practices looks like. Three takeaways. They seem like they're all hard work, but they're very approachable. So I'm excited for us to try some of those things, and for anyone listening to maybe give try some of these insights that you share with us today. So Natalie, thank you so much for being here today. I learned a lot. I'm excited to go and try to make some of these things actionable as quickly as I possibly can. So I really appreciate that.
You're very welcome. I feel like I've only scratched the surface, but maybe I'll come back sometime if you'll have me.
That would be great. We'll need a round 2 to go even deeper. Natalie, where can people find you or follow along in other mediums?
Sure. So I have a LinkedIn page. I'm working on a personal page as well. It's a work in progress, nights and weekends, but it'll be a page that basically has my publications and research on there. So that people can follow up the podcasts on there that I've done. So I'm happy to talk to anyone. Share different things that I've learned and also learn from others. But yeah, if anyone wants to follow up, you can contact me. I'm at natalie.schibell@zyder.com. And you can also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to chat.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Natalie. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks, Greg.
Rev up your ears, it's time to ignite. GTM leaders bringing secrets to light. Revenue boosters, tips out in the fast lane. Watch your profits grow.